Call the meeting to order, start with pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Over the agenda.
I do have, an RSU Finance Committee short report, although I did give the audit to Keith already, but I have a few more notes.
Under business, I'd like
Committee,
to add.
oh, yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was trying to say under committee and board reports, that was it, yeah.
Under business, I'd like to add, seeking approval for a new commercial card resolution form. I'm gonna need board approval for.
Anything else? Nope. Make a motion we approve as amended.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Velma, all those in favor? Public forum. Floor is yours, guys.
Actually, I have something.
Yeah, we'll sit over there.
Yeah, I have to go. I don't know how many of you know that the Historical Society is in the process of getting information together to build a community building on our lot over there. A building that will resemble the old North Chapel Church, which used to sit there, and be able to be used not only for our functions, being suppers, but also for community functions. And we're in the process of trying to, put together information to write some grants. And the one thing that would help us would be a letter of support for the concept of our meeting house from the selectmen and from the town. And we're wondering if that is something that you might do for us.
Yeah, I don't have any objections to doing that on behalf of the Historical Society.
I will make that motion.
Motion by Dan,
I'll second.
seconded by Phil, for the draft of the letter to assist historical. All those in favor?
I'll abstain. Thank you.
Did they come public? Approval of the minutes.
If nobody has any changes, I'll move to approve. Second.
Motion by Phil, seconded by Dan.
How did the office closing decision hasn't been made yet?
Yeah, yes, I heard from the town clerk's office today, they're gonna close on Thursday there. My office will be open, finance will be open, and if the people upstairs wanna take the day, they'll have to take it as a vacation day as well, as I instructed, so. Two downstairs will close, so we'll make a notification of that.
All those in favor? All abstains, those in here. Velma?
The RSU Finance Committee met, went over the audit, and I did have a copy of the audit, I brought it in and gave it to Keith. They also discussed, the unbudgeted expenses such as legal, the fields, insurance, consulting, and they had a long discussion on banking services. The RSU has always banked with, what was the old Ocean National Bank? The MSAD before them always banked with Ocean National Bank. It was a local bank. But then, I can't remember the name of the people who Ocean National is now. Peoples? No.
No.
Anyway, it's an out-of-state bank that owns them, so they are considering looking into perhaps changing banking services. The problem, mainly because the RSU probably has about $6 million on deposit any one day in, different accounts. The problem is, they probably have 30 or 40 accounts that would all have to be changed over, but they are looking into it. Okay, and they were going to discuss the bidding policy, and our next meeting is this Thursday morning.
Has there been any discussion yet on, I know that they're just getting ready to start to discuss the budget. Has there been any discussion on what type of rate they're shooting for next year's budget? With all of this extra money that they've got to spend?
No,
I mean, that they spend.
no, they haven't. The audit, by the way, did come in, it was a very good audit, so.
I'm just concerned that, that tax bill is gonna go up huge, and I think it's time that we get after them to put their heads together to try to, keep things as flat as possible.
Well, we know legal is going to go up a lot. The fields, they have, what they're trying to do is get together a group of private citizens to perhaps go out and get some money donated to do the fields, because they'd really like to do a, artificial turf field. And they do already have, I think somebody had already donated some money to help towards the track.
If they do anything with that, they've gotta go after some capital,
Yes,
so.
and, insurance is probably gonna go up, and of course, with the legal cost was that KVK consulting, both the legal cost and that, have gone up tremendously this year, so that's one or two of the major
As,
things they're gonna
as
do.
members of the finance committee, I'm
Yeah.
hoping that you guys, I know that
Well, we don't have
they,
votes.
I'm for education, but, we gotta try to, I'm worried that bill is gonna come in way high this year, and it's,
Neither of us, if I may, have votes, but we are vocal.
Yeah.
And will be. They're just starting, each department manager is starting to collect information, and the budget review process won't begin until, I think, early February, is it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
and Ira's running it this year, right? Ira's the finance committee head.
Yes, he chairs the finance committee. So he has a vote.
Would it pay to say something before the budget review starts? So that you're not reviewing outlandish figures, hopefully they've got it into line a little bit before it gets reviewed.
It was my plan to say something at one of their meetings,
Yeah.
just as the general public, to say, hey, but as a citizen, not as a citizen from Arundel.
Well, also, wasn't there some talk of a communications group which would involve a couple of selectmen and the school board? Would that be an avenue to relay this sort of message as well?
I think Keith, isn't that the committee that you're on with the other town managers and?
Yeah, and we, Dan and Tom have indicated they'll serve on that committee as well. Right now, I think all parties are trying to put together a date that would be beneficial for everybody, so that hasn't started quite yet. I look at it differently. I see that the school, there's certain, by state statute, there's certain limitations or certain amounts that they must meet. I think where there may be room for movement is those amounts that the district allocates or gets approved for above the essential program and services limit. I don't know how that factors out within their operating budget, but if I was trying to find something, I think I would be looking and having my discussions with that particular part of the budget in order to find out where that is and how it moves and how it gets changed and that kind of thing, so.
Yeah,
it's just
they've
my-
they got union contracts that, you know, they've
Yeah.
gotta take care of salaries and stuff, that, not much you can do with that.
Not gonna do
I'm
much.
sure there's a lot of good reasons, but the fact of the matter is, they hit us with a 5% increase last year, and 5% per year is just not sustainable. I mean, that's a killer.
If I could make a comment too along this line, I agree with what you're saying, Keith, the 80% of the budget is labor and benefits. And so there's only a small piece that's truly variable. But, the proposed changes, with regard to, relocating students and this enrollment process, and I think there's a meeting on that tomorrow night too. That can potentially result in a reduction of staffing, and that is a legitimate thing to do. By the same token, you reduce your staffing perhaps by moving the kids to the teachers instead of the teachers to the kids. And at the same time, you may increase your transportation costs a bit. So there's kind of a
Plus
trade-off.
the school time changing, that's a huge increase of the transportation also, that requires
Oh.
new buses, that.
No question about it.
Right, so it's like
And,
spend,
and
spend, spend, spend.
these are topics that I think you as a team will want to really hone in on in your discussions and the impact on our communities.
Any more on this? Mr. Manager?
Yeah, I just wanted to have a general conversation as to, particularly the next two subjects matters that I have here. Groundbreaking ceremony, when you would like to perhaps anticipate that, maybe a couple of dates that may work out. And, when the municipal building committee, if you want to establish a time to get them together prior to setting up the groundbreaking. I guess I'm looking at it twofold. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, as to what we should be doing. I'm up for a suggestion.
I would think groundbreaking in the next week or so, right? Looks like they got equipment over there.
They have equipment there, yep. I'll get into a little bit more of the status of the, contract as we get into, the end of this, so that may help make those decisions. But if I'm hearing that, you know, the sooner the better, that's something that we'll try to venture for. I think I wanna try to get it at a time that's advantageous for you as selectmen to be there as well as the, building committee. So, I'll keep that in mind. The other thing is that the, Joan Hull from the, Conservation Trust reached out to me and said that when they were doing some groundbreaking, that the Chamber of Commerce was very beneficial in their efforts to publicize, to coordinate, and to assist in whatever, whatever was needed in their groundbreaking. And I did attend one, where the chamber was there and did a nice job of putting some things together. So I think once we narrow it down, we may wanna get the chamber involved, see if they can get some more publicity out there. We may have more people than we know that show up, but I would like to make it a fairly large event. I think it warrants it.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of good with communications, and now that we voted, I don't wanna stop. Right?
Sure.
If we need to keep on, and obviously, there was a discussion last time about having a groundbreaking after the equipment was there and he started actually doing some.
Yeah.
So I guess a lot of that depends on what's going on with the contract, but I
Right.
certainly would like to have it as soon as possible, and I think that we should be meeting with the building committee to establish their role going forward as soon as possible.
Okay, so both of them as soon as possible. You don't have any, I'm gonna try to keep them, both, if these meetings take place, particularly the municipal building committee, either an off Monday or a Tuesday night, that I've secured the building for, and the room for, so.
Tuesday would be better for me so that I could attend the school board meetings. but-
Okay, and I'll reach out to Jack, perhaps we can put a date together that we can meet with the committee and get that information out. And at the same token, maybe we'll have a groundbreaking, date that we can express to everybody and try to get that going. All right, sooner than later, is what I'm hearing.
So I haven't been down that way, but you said there's equipment there, is these,
There's
done
two
anything there,
excavators,
or-
there's two big excavators there and a bulldozer at this point, so.
If you were to ever look at the local website, picture right there on the homepage.
oh, is there, oh? I do check the website often.
Yeah.
Ask Keith, cause I give him crap all the time about planning board agendas.
The next thing I have, Mr. Chairman, is just a general discussion, if you didn't see it, the articles that appeared in the paper, and also the editorial that was written by Jack relative to it. I think that editorial is what spurred on everybody else contacting me, to get comments, and then having Channel 13 show up in my office unannounced and doing an interview with them, so, but it has not, and I can be candid, it has not brought any further information forward at this point. But as to what you've explained, it appears that people are discussing it, talking about it. The only thing it did bring forward to me was that, the article appeared in the paper, and Provost Sign from Kennybunk approached me, and they said they would give us a discount on redoing the signs, the original signs, as best they could. New posts, they mount them, they put them up, and they came in at a price of about $3,700 a sign, so, include the posts. So something to think about as we move through the process, but, that was very nice, at least it motivated, some concerned business to reach out.
Have you made contact with the insurance company, have you heard anything back?
We haven't heard anything back yet. At your last meeting, you talked about the write-offs for the mobile homes that, we've had over the past several years, so I had Simone put together a list that I gave to you tonight, just so you have an idea of what it is. Generally, it appears that, our write-offs for these motor homes that are really personal property more than real estate, runs about $1,300 to $1,400 a year over the last several years. So it's not an exorbitant amount of money, but something that you would ask for, and I've provided that list.
But
for you to see.
the motorhome part of it is really, there's only 5 of them in the last 14 years. The rest is all other stuff that we've written off.
Yeah.
So I mean, my concern was how often, because there's that loophole in, for these trailers, that somebody could just take off and not pay. I'm just kinda curious as to how much we're losing from that. In 14 years, there's only been 5 instances.
Right, it's not an exorbitant amount of money, you're absolutely correct.
At least from what I can tell from this list.
The next thing is the status on the contract with Elect Construction. We're into draft 3 at this point. Both attorneys and Roulette have, we bounced back and forth. I got off the phone just before coming here from Leah, sort of solidifying what we wanted to counter with. That counter went out today. Basically, what it's boiling down to is liability, who's gonna cover the builder's risk insurance. They wanna limit their exposure, based on parts of the contract that or parts of the design they have no control over. So, things like that, and it's more of, I think it's more of language than anything else. I think most of them we've been able to resolve, so I'm hopeful that we'll have this wrapped up before the end of this week. So, I know that they would like to get moving, and, expressed to them, their willingness to give us, some sort of immunity, from liability moving forward. They'd be more than happy to come on, but the equipment's there, but no activities happen with it, so. I think they're all waiting for the contract to be signed as well. And finally, the enrollment meeting, if you recall, that's been a big controversy. We had a lot of citizens that were here last, I think it was last fall, or I can't remember, maybe it was even the spring, it's been a while, but they were here expressing their concerns about what the enrollment committee was doing in reference to, changes in where students were gonna go and how that was gonna, be motivated. Now, the committee has sort of stepped back from and got, school board approval to step back from their deadline of having it sometime in December. I think they would have their report done. And now we're looking to have, the committee, express to, the public in each individual community, what they're doing, where they are, and really giving a presentation locally. There were dates that were thrown around. I have established the Arundel date for January 13th. I think that's your next, I think that's your first meeting in January. As they indicated to me, it'll be about an hour's presentation. And so, we'll start out with them first thing and have them, I think they have a presentation go on the screen and maybe some handouts and express some opinions. And I guess we're just waiting to see how they want to, advertise for this, but that's what we've established at this point. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on to business, we're looking for an RFP for legal services.
Yes, I put together a, request for proposal for, legal services, and I reached out to the Selectman just to have him take a look at it, and incorporated his changes within the document that I placed in your packet. Tonight, he's expressed some more tweaking of the document, so.
Awful, some lawyers.
Yeah.
I know. So, I'm hoping that, he'll go through maybe the changes with you, and then if it seeks your approval, that you make a motion to approve as amended, and I'll make the changes and get it out, because, again, we're getting close to the end of the month. Berg and Parkinson will hold on to our records until we make a final decision. I'd like to, have them submitted back to us by the 21st of December. It gives them a couple weeks for these folks to get out. The other thing I do have in reference to this is, at your last meeting, we talked about the importance of trying to enhance the ability of the York County firms to get their names in the game, so to speak. And what I did, and Tom's probably better at this than I, but what I did is I tried to look for those firms that at least delve in municipal law. And quite frankly, there isn't a lot of them that are doing it. I think I've captured all the ones in York County that I could see that were being advertised. And then you have a plethora of them in the Portland area that are doing municipal law stuff. So I will seek to give personal invitations to every of the York County firms that I have on the list, and probably some of the Portland firms, because they're pretty well recognized in that field. And then we'll put some general advertisement within the paper to solicit any of those others that may have some expertise in municipal law and be able to provide us our services. So that was my thought. I just didn't want to send it to every law firm, because there's some that really focus on real estate, and probate, family law and all that, and I don't think we'd just be wasting their time as well as ours, so.
a chance to look at it?
Yeah, I scanned through it a little bit.
Let me tell you, the changes, the additional changes I made, I just wanted to be abundantly clear that, the only person really that should be contacting council for anything essentially is, the town manager, so, I don't want it to be thought that any town committee or other board member, can, simply pick up the phone and call council and start the clock running, that's not appropriate, so.
Didn't it say somewhere in here that board members can't talk to council?
Correct.
And the chairman of the board, it said could.
Right, the chair should be able to, because it could be that, the chair has to contact council because of a problem with the town manager.
Right, exactly.
So you have to have that. So I just put in here, rather than upon specific authorization, and with the authorization, committee and department heads and the assessor can talk with council, and that would go down all the way to 1 through 5. And then 4, you would have, 10, board of selectmen and committee meetings upon the request of the town manager or the board chair, if the circumstance arose. The other thing on the second page, about 2/3 of the way down, I just suggested, rather than town manager the town attorney shall be under the general supervision of the town manager. I'm not sure that you'd get away with that, but, so I just suggest we change it, to be under the general direction of the town manager as far as town business is concerned. On the bottom here where it says termination for cause, I would include the language, termination for cause would include, among other causes, any suspension or disbarment, clearly. And lastly, I just mentioned to Keith, most firms that I know have, upped their professional liability coverage to $2 million per occurrence, but he's gonna check and see, what any municipal or somebody might have to say about that. I mean, firms of my size are at 2 million, and I think the Portland folks, are upwards of 5, just because got a lot more people and a lot more departments and those types of things. But, under the right case, $2 million
I don't think 2 million's a lot.
it's not a lot of money,
And it's not a lot of money in the case, and it's not a lot of money to buy.
Yeah.
So I think I'd be looking for a motion and a second to include comms and then provide me the authority to go ahead and put that right out to bid.
Start us up, Dan.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Dan,
I'll second.
seconded by Phil, all those in favor?
And I'll shoot you
Thanks, Tom.
a revised version of that tomorrow, Allison, type that up, so, okay.
Yep. No problem,
Yeah.
thank you. The next piece is the bond anticipation note. I contacted several banks, and the 3 that got back to me, under the provisions that I provided them, which was the loan would be good for 1 year, we could take advances on the loan when needed, and there'd be no prepayment penalty if paid off early, and all fees would be waived, and I had 3 firms that were in agreement to that. The lowest rate that I received was from Biddeford Savings at 1.67%. Androscoggin Bank came in at 2.41%, I think that's what it was, and then, Kennebunk Savings came in at 2.79%. So I'd like to reach out to Biddeford Savings with the 1.67 bond anticipation note rate.
I'll make a motion to reach out to Bedford Savings and get that secured.
Yeah.
Second.
Dan,
Rate of
seconded by
1.67.
Phil, you got something to say?
No, I was just gonna second it, Bill beat me to
Yeah,
it.
seconded by Phil, all those in favor?
I'll abstain, because I do some work for BSD.
How was that in comparison to the rate that you had plugged in, 1.67?
We were using the rate that was given us by Maine Bond Bank, which started at 2.2 in the first year. So it's a better rate than we could have got off Maine Bond.
Oh, you doing the calculation on the entire debt at that point, John, rather than
I was
on the
doing,
draws that we might have?
I was,
You were
At that
speculating
time-
withdrawals. Right.
Sorry?
You were speculating
oh,
withdrawals.
withdrawals, yeah. I did a couple of calculations based on, I was making 10 withdrawals
Oh, okay.
at one withdrawal a month. And it also assumed that we would pay the accrued interest on a monthly basis, that we didn't let it pile up until the end of the note. So over a 10-month period, like if we started in January and wound up in November, the total amount of interest I calculated for Biddeford Savings Bank was $20,693. And total for Androscoggin Bank would have been $29,863. Now, the low figure, when you add it to the interest that we would have due on the actual bond for the first year, comes out about $20,000 better than what we had been anticipating with the spring issuance of the bond. So we're really looking pretty good with this 1.67 rate, so
Nice.
I'd get that nailed down
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
quick.
think they really want our business.
Mhm.
They've got some of our CDs now, and they've really been pushing hard for it, so. Great. Finally, I have this, we have a commercial credit card through People's United Bank, and they've had to issue new cards, and before they issue them, they need a resolution and a vote by the board in order to have the chairman of the board sign this document. Generally, what it is just a, form that we need to fill out, send back to them. And then we've also put the deputy treasurer and Wendy as her backup to answer any questions that they may have relative to the billing on the agreement. These cards, just so you have a better understanding of what we do with these cards, is that they're not in the possession of any employee. They're left with the finance director, they're in Lisa's office, until they're needed, and then they're released. So if somebody needs to use the card, say, if Public Works needs to purchase something on Amazon because it's cheaper, we'll give them the card, they can make the purchase, and then we get the bill in and we deduct it accordingly. So that's how we're keeping the controls of it, so.
And who can use those cards?
Anybody who has it can have the authority to use it, but with Lisa and Wendy will have the ability to talk with the bank and answer any questions that they may come up, and also the billing.
And they're controlling the cards, because you can't use the card without going through them.
Yeah, it doesn't get released unless I know about it. Let's put it that way. Usually Lisa's very good about stepping into my office and saying, hey, look, so-and-so needs the card. We just
So
ask
there's a
for it.
double check.
Right.
I
So
think People's United Bank is the current name for
On what used to be Ocean
what
National,
used to be Ocean National down there.
that's where the RSU does all their business, because they always did business with Ocean National.
So if I could get a motion
Yeah, I'll make a
to,
motion that we approve the commercial credit card.
give the authority to the chairman of the board to sign this on your behalf.
Motion by Dan,
Second.
second by Tom, all those in favor?
Make sure you put Jason's social security number on. it,
Yeah.
Date of
I'll
birth.
send that down to you, Jason. There's a couple places, Lisa's marked, that can be signed. I can fill in the rest of the paperwork.
other business?
John, did you say that on the Arundel website, there's a picture of, equipment there?
Yeah.
Mind if I steal that picture and put it on the Arundel chatter?
Oh, have at it. Once you see it, you might not want it. I was telling Keith, I was apologizing to Keith for the quality of it, but.
Well, that's okay, that's.
Oh, I don't know, maybe that way the person who took the signs is gonna see this and get ideas, so maybe we don't wanna put it out there that it's there.
That brings back my comment about security fencing and
I-
cameras.
I did mention to the contractor about fencing, and, I don't know if I told you this, when they did their budget for the project, they had not anticipated fencing, and I indicated to them that they may want to at least put fencing across the front to prohibit vehicle traffic from coming through there. But I entirely left it up to them and their discretion at that point. So we'll have to continue to monitor it, and make sure we don't have any problems out that way.
Yeah, especially once that well gets done.
Yeah, I think we can cap it and lock it,
Yeah.
so I don't have a problem with it.
You got a state trooper out front now too.
Yeah. I was thinking about maybe purchasing some game cameras and putting those in location, and then talking to the trooper about placing one over his property, shooting that way as well. You know, I think that,
Can use that newly issued credit card for that.
so. And Dan and Dan was able to, and this is sort of related, I got some security quotes that him and I are going to meet next week, just to look at. It was a pretty elaborate system of motion detectors and inside 360-degree cameras, outside one camera was 360 degree, two were 180 degrees, one was fixed. So we're gonna take a look at it, and then it had a key fob system in order to open the doors, and that could be regulated, and I could control it on my phone. So, there's some nice features to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kinda what we asked them to do, is, give us a nice system, and then we're gonna take away from it.
Yeah, we'll have to take a
You
little
know.
bit, 'cause it came in kinda high.
Oh, yeah,
But
I knew that
so
was
we
gonna happen.
anticipated. So Dan and I are gonna look at that a little bit more before we come back to you folks with it.
What kind of numbers were they looking at, Keith?
We're over 40,
Was it?
over
But
40,
it-
with
you
the
know,
motion systems inside, and then the camera systems outside, and then some of the cameras inside, cause the main rooms had cameras that actually were like that one up there.
Cameras, motion sensors in pretty much all areas.
All the external
You know, and,
office areas that had windows had motion sensors, which I think is probably a good idea.
No, I
I'm not-
didn't notice that camera up there.
I'm not so keen about the cameras, but,
like the cameras themselves, aren't that expensive, but, we'll sit back and figure out what we want. I mean, it's gonna be certainly more expensive than what we had budgeted, but I think we can take away from some of
sure.
the other stuff that we talked about,
Yeah.
because that was on the high end, so. It all depends on what system everybody wants to feel
Yeah, I
comfortable
think we
with.
can work it out. So.
Would that be monitored 24/7?
It will be, I think it will be looped so we can look at it, if we had an event.
And depending on how we go, it can be part of our burglar system, so that if there's motion detected at 9 o'clock at night, or, a window is broken or something 9 o'clock at night, there are different levels on that, and it'll depend on what we want, so. And it's gonna be nice to understand also what the heating and air conditioning system, what that is gonna do, for fire and what have you, because
Correct.
that may take away some of what.
And the other thing was is that the company that Dana reached out to was going to reach out to the contractor to see what kind of hardware packages they had already put into the bid,
Right.
because there may be a modification to that if we go with a fob system, which he
Yeah, it could be, that would be, depending on what their hardware is, it might be, a reduction. And the other thing is, this company does, they got, they do Bedford City Hall, they do a bunch of municipal buildings in the area, so, they're, a good-sized company.
It'd be nice if the surveillance could be recorded somewhere off-site. So that if anybody breaks in, they can't damage the recording mechanism. And I think it can be done fairly easily
Yeah.
these days, you
I
just
know-
have an internet hookup and
Yeah,
perhaps to
I know Peter mentioned something about the cloud, and I'll have to ask him about that.
yeah,
I can't remember now, but he did mention a cloud, I can ask him,
yeah.
see how that would work, but.
Pretty elaborate stuff up there, that's for sure.
Again,
So it caught me.
the sky is the limit, it's just how much we wanna spend,
Yeah.
That's it.
And the cameras that he recommended, we use them, those exact cameras at our company, and I went in the other day just to go take a look at what these got, and, they've upgraded since I was in facilities, and it's a pretty nice setup. It would give, if Keith wanted to, it would give him the ability as a town, or anybody else, to have a separate monitor, and, watch, all entrances if he wants, watch, the front desk. There are panic buttons in various locations, so, again, I asked, give us a nice system, and he went and all the bells and whistles. We gotta start somewhere, right, and then we can piece away and
Yeah.
go from there, so. I didn't start this.
Need a motion for, pay,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor? Anything else?
7:43.
Can't make it myself, Dan,
What's that?
I can't make it myself.
Well, I don't think that's a rule.
That's the little email.
That's right,
Well, I mean, we kind of,
What's that?
it kind of fits
held
right
to
in.
that.
No other business to make a motion to adjourn,
Thank you, Bill.
while you guys are sitting there arguing.
Yeah, then we just make a
No.
motion. Don already made the motion.
Seconded it.
All those in favor?
You guys scheme